it's, so you can see the shadow.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so. Moving on this side. Alright, so. Good afternoon, everybody. Hi there. I kind of like that shadow like that. Alright, so hi, I'm Vinnie Bagwell. And let me make this so this looks alive. Alright, so I'm going to run through this real fast. We're going to start off by introducing you to my work, and then we're going to introduce you to this concept. So hi, I'm Vinnie Bagwell, and I am a storyteller. I like to call myself a creative steward of our nation's memory. And I create public art that conveys unvarnished truth. I like to share history. And it needs to elevate the culture of marginalized people. My style is anchored in naturalism. My daughter went to art school. She says naturalism. I like to say realism, but I guess the correct word is naturalism, untutored. And my work is defined by candid portraiture. So I do three-dimensional sculptures, and I like to move the viewer with narrative bas-relief techniques. Those of you that follow me kind of know this. And so I employ montages, symbols, and text, and the idea is to create visual intrigue and to drive a story. So for me, the details matter. And in this instance, we're talking about facial expressions, body language, line, texture, all these things add visual intrigue. My goal is to not only capture your eye, but to hold it. And so my subjects have souls, and they speak to the viewer. I've used incised text and graphics, which create intimacy with the viewer. The goal is for the work to be engaging. And so Bryce Turner is an architect. He owns CEO of BCT Architects and DDG USA. This is Dan Dunstan, who is the senior architect for this project, so he's here. And we originally competed for the Frederick Douglass Circle at the northwest corner of Central Park back in 2004. That's how we first came together, and this was our presentation. And so now I'm going to turn over to Dan, because Dan's going to tell you a little bit more about what they do.
Okay. I'll make it quick because I want to get to the design. But
Yes.
so my name is Dan Dunstan. I'm the head architect, landscape architect for the department. But we have, it's kind of a mid-sized company in Baltimore, and we have interior designers, and we have graphic designers, architects, landscape architects. And the work we do, it's on a local scale, and then we also do international work. Like for right now, last week we're trying to get a package out. We're doing a mall in Paris, and we're doing an IKEA in Siberia. Siberia right now is getting an IKEA. Nobody serious. Really cool stuff. But I'll go a little bit about our landscape and what we do. What is our goal in landscape is to bring people together and to strengthen communal ties with each other, to get people to feel comfortable about where they are outside and communicate and get along. And this is done by creating an environment that's comfortable, safe, and memorable. And we try and inject as much program into the space as possible. This is the most important part. We try and give people a reason for being at this place. And usually we try and tie it in with what the existing community needs. And you know, we have to do the research to do that. But that ensures the success and use of the area. There. And we've been working with Vinnie for a few years now on various projects. She's one of my favorite people to work with because she has a clear understanding and focus of what she's doing. And so when we go and present her with our landscape designs, she knows exactly to parse through, this is going to work, this is not going to work, and this fits my vision. And that's why her sculptures and everything around it shines, is because she has a clear vision. And that's why I really enjoy working with her. Go ahead.
All right, so Victory. When I first applied for this public art project, the story is what intrigued me. And the question is, how do I tell that story with figurative representational sculpture. And so we looked at this demographic, and we knew that the Seneca Village was near this part of Central Park. We knew that this museum was here, and we knew that the hospital was across the street. And so I wanted to tie it all together. And so, for instance, I noticed that the Conservancy Gardens is not too far up the street, and I love the gate. And of course, I love landscaping, and so that was part of the inspiration. And then, of course, the New York Academy of Medicine, you've got the Hippocratic Oath, you've got the rod of Asclepius, you have all these things that you can tie in, and so these are the things that I drew from. And then, of course, the Museum of the City of New York, one of the things that I realized is that, well, first of all, I didn't know that there were 7 different kinds of angels when I started looking at angels. And so, God delegates, and so there's something called a victory. And in art, victory is always depicted as an angel. So I started Googling angels, and the first thing I noticed was I can't find a black angel in public art anywhere. I've challenged everybody. Google and send it to me if you can find it. So I'm thinking, New York City, because of the diversity of this place, we should have one. So, when I was called and I was told that I was a finalist, I was asked, do you have any questions? And of course, I had already given this a lot of thought. I was like, yeah, I do. I want to know, can I have some room? And so Kendall says, what do you mean? I said, I have measured, and the width of the crosswalk is 30 feet, and the depth of the sidewalk is 30 feet. I want a 30 by 30 square foot footprint, please. He said, okay. I said, okay, so my other thing is, can I use fire? And he was like, fire? I was like, yeah, fire. He said, what kind of fire? I said, what do you mean what kind of fire? The kind that burns you, real fire, live fire. He said, yeah, I'm very curious to see what you want to do. Yeah, we have fire, yes. We have fire at Gracie Mansion, yes, you can do fire. So, when I called Bryce, and he turned me on to Dan, Dan said, what feeling are you going for? I was like, wow. I want wow, wow, wow. I want day and night wow. I want it to stop traffic. I don't want people to walk by it. I want people to stop. I want people to look at it. I want people to check out the story. I want to, again, snatch their eye and make them look and make them learn about this story. But I also want to make it be, I want to slam with beauty. That's what I want. I want everywhere their eyes look to say, wow, look at the feathers, look at this, look at that. I want people to love this piece. I want this to be an icon. I wanted to do something that I've never done before. I've never made an angel before. This is my first one. I'm so psyched about it. And so part of it is that all these ideas for the angel came to me, but I said, I need more. And I know Bryce and his team, and I said, I want to knock their socks off. So, as I began to look at all of my components, one of the things that I really liked was the Hippocratic Oath. And of course, the Hippocratic Oath is first do no harm. This is something that doctors agreed to. And so the reminder is that we're not supposed to hurt each other. And so that was the beginning of my psychology. So again, I took the rod of Asclepius. And then, of course, I am looking at the circle that I made. I'm going to put something in there. So then, of course, I looked at Reeves and what those mean. So everything about her has a meaning. And so this is, the 3D view. And again, it's an unfolding story. So what I learned was there were 12 women. They only really know the names of, less than half. And so you have these women that are anonymous. And I wanted to make sure that they got equal attention. And so one of the things that you will see is near the top, you will see like silhouettes of 12 women that go around her. Now the idea was to be able to look at it from the front and the back. So you've got 6 women in the background, you got 6 women in the front, in the back up here. And so then the question is, well, what else are you going to say? So it's like, well, I'll put the 3 women that we know the names of down front, since everybody kind of relates to them. And then I started thinking about women and how women are. And the interesting thing about women, I was saying this earlier, women will walk into a movie theater to put their lipstick on and start a conversation with a strange woman, and they will leave that bathroom exchanging business cards and they will become friends. Women support each other. That's how we are. And so I decided to show the relationships between women, because you're thinking, if you came home from the OBGYN today and he mistreated you and you were hurting and he didn't give you any painkiller or any anesthesia, if you called your mother, your sister, your daughter, your grandmother, your best friend, women would be there for you. So this is about the relationship between women. So you've got girlfriends, you've got grandmothers, you've got granddaughters, you've got daughters, you've got mothers, you've got sisters, you've got girlfriends. I'm thinking that this should represent all women. So if you really were able to see this piece up close, you will see clearly enslaved African-looking women, but you will also see something that looks like maybe Hispanic women, maybe Asian women. You know, again, the goal is the way things are going, anybody can be enslaved. And so this piece is supposed to be instructional. So I have her standing on a 5-foot-high pedestal. And again, I tried to stay with the scale of the sculpture that was there before. So the figure of the sculpture is 9 feet, but by the time you add the wings, she's something like 12 and a half, so she's up 5 feet. So the total height is approximately 18 and a quarter inches tall. Could be more, could be a little less. So I'm talking to Dan, and I'm saying to Dan, I want to remove that plinth. And I really like the gate up at the Conservancy, so can we maybe do some takeoff of the Vanderbilt gate? And this is what they came back with, and of course I was clapping. Do you want to tell them more about your psychology with just this view? And
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, partly what I wanted to do was make sure that the gate kind of speaks the same language that you see in Central Park. So we're using similar shapes and materials and decorative parts that you will see just a block down the road. So we want it to look like it fits and that perhaps it's always been here. Meanwhile, we chose this shape because it makes it look like she is the centerpiece of a stained glass window. And as you see in a stained glass window, usually there's a saint or a martyr, somebody that's probably sacrificed a lot for the benefit of others. And considering the story that these ladies have to tell, this seems appropriate. And then finally, we give her a halo to complete the look. The what?
The order of centuries.
Oh yeah, well okay, so more in the landscape. We put this big tree behind her, and that tree is a thundercloud plum tree. It's got profuse pink flowers in the springtime. It is beautiful, and these pink flowers are to represent the women. And then finally, it's got bright red leaves all through the season to represent the sacrifice.
And there are no trees like that on Fifth Avenue. There are no flowering trees on Fifth Avenue. So this is a wonderful display of femininity. So, plum trees shall bloom pink flowers to celebrate women. There are no other flowering trees on Fifth Avenue. So then, my 30 by 30, we decided to use grant papers. And I'm telling you, when I opened up this email, I was squealing. Please tell them what.
Okay, this is a sunburst. This is kind of, I want people to be led in to look all around the sculpture and be inspired by the story that it has to tell. But these rays of light that you see coming from the statue itself are to represent the knowledge gained by the sacrifice. And the individual pieces of black and gray granite are to represent that the light is going through and helping people throughout the world. It doesn't matter what race or country you're from. We've all benefited thanks to the sacrifice and the knowledge gained by these ladies. Very good. Okay, well, let's talk about the plants. The plants, I chose these plants. I wanted it to look alive and attractive all summer long. So we've got the butterfly weed that's going to just be crawling with butterflies. It's going to look beautiful. Then we have the lavender behind that and the tall pluming grass behind that. The reason is because in the winter time, the grass is still going to stand tall up against the snowfall, and it's going to look beautiful. But it's also, because it's tall, it's going to screen your views so that you pay more attention to the sculpture, because that is the star of the show. And then finally we have LED lights. So
Wait, before you go, wait, I have to say this. Let me tell you something. When I opened up the email, I was like, I'm like, where did they do that? And I love this. I'm sorry.
Can you imagine these lights with her holding the flame at night and the upward, it's going to look beautiful. And if you want to see what this looks like, go to the Lincoln Center. They have the LED lights in the paving as well.
So, this is basically the mechanics of the dimensions. There is an apron that is shaped like the symbol for women. You see the cross at the bottom? But I made it a cogwheel because, well, you can see it there too, see it? I made it a cogwheel because it represents women working together, how women, when we work together, when we unify, how we move the world. That's what that means. And so here again you have the dimensions of the gate. Do you want to talk about that?
No, we're basically just trying to keep the same dimensions that are appropriate for the look of Central Park, and that's mostly what we want to show you. That's it. And this is just the technical information. It's nothing else.
All right, so we wanted to have seating, and so we're using probably wasabi black granite, and the idea is to have signage on the surfaces. So two of the benches, one of course will have the Greek and the other one will have the English, First New Do Harm, and then the third bench will have information about the commission, you know, the artist, the name of the commissioner who financed it, anything else that you want to have on there. And so that's basically it. The work schedule. I can do this in a year. It's not a problem. The challenge is going to be what else I have to do. So I'm going to say that according to the literature that I saw, we're talking about 2021, which would give more time to really kind of relax and not feel so pressured. But you know, it's up to New York City if they want to try to get this out by the end of next year, if they just want to kind of give me a little bit more leisurely place. Thank you very much.
Starting with the panelists, if you have any questions. Yeah.
Hi there.
Thank you so much. I must have missed it. Can you talk a little bit about the fire?
Yes?
What she's actually holding and the significance of the cross as well?
Okay, so I've always wanted to work with fire. I'm a fire sign, and for me, the fire is about enlightenment. For many of us, particularly those of us that are creative, many of us were born this way. And there's a lot that we know intuitively because we feel like we're God's favorite kids.
Yeah.
And so many of us create artwork to, well, enlighten humanity because art is a soft, mechanical thing to teach with. It's so much easier to have accessible art to tell a story rather than ask a person to read a book or to go watch a movie or whatever the case may be. The other thing is that it's permanent. So the fire represents sacrifice, it represents enlightenment, it represents a variety of things. For me, it was really about trying to help people understand that this virtues and victories are the ones who take us to heaven. They write our souls. So no matter what you do, when it's time to go home, you go through the fire and you go back to the light. And that's essentially all it is. Of course, in the last week or so, when you guys put out the opportunity to vote, people have told me a lot of things about the fire that I hadn't even thought of. So it's interesting how different people interpret the fire. I've gotten some of the most beautiful love letters about this piece. It's just been remarkable. And the fire is impactful. Conversationally speaking, the only challenge with the fire is that we have to hope that there's a gas line underneath that area. So we didn't have the time, nor were we really going to do that to verify. But we assume that because where this is located, there should be a gas line somewhere in the immediate area that we've got a plume. And then, of course, interestingly enough, it was really hard finding somebody to actually do that. The person that I found that specializes in that is in Canada. But she specializes in it, and I really hope to get to do it. Thank you. Yes, next.
Over there.
And I also asked about the cross, though.
The cross. The cross, you're talking about in the apron?
In the wheel, on the ground.
Okay, so this is what I was saying a minute ago. Okay, so again, the symbol for women is the circle with the cross. The symbol for men is the circle with the arrow. So again, because this is dedicated to the women that participated in these experiments, that is a symbol of womanhood. And then, as I said earlier, I put the cogs in it because it represents women working together. In other words, cogs go like this. When you work together, you can move things. So that's the idea for the cogged female symbol.
Any more questions from the opening up to the...
I have
sorry.
a very good data. I think this was on the gate, the bird that's there. What is that?
Oh, it's a dove. This is
A dove.
piece.
Yes, thank you.
Hi. I was wondering if the flame is going to be an eternal flame, and also if we can get like the elder commented on another proposal, getting African-inspired. I don't know, maybe the gate or something, on the dress.
There will be on the dress, and again, I can walk around with the sculpture so you can see it closest because it's kind of hard to see from this distance. But on the dress, there is Braille, for instance. So on.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so for instance, on this side, the Braille says, "My soul looks back and wonders how I got over." On the other side, there is Braille that says, "My soul is anchored," which is a bow to the spirituals that African Americans sing. There will be probably Adinkra symbols. There are other symbols that I want to add to it. Again, for people who recognize it, like for instance, I have 2 Facebook pages. My second Facebook page, ironically, is mostly people from Africa, which I find really interesting. It is not uncommon for them to tell me that they know what the symbols are. So again, the idea is to see, when you walk around, to see something that you understand, something that you know, and it will speak to different people differently depending on what their orientation is. So yeah, there will be places. I think that if you want to talk about adding symbols to the wrought iron gate, there's room to do that too. Like for instance, you've got your side railings. The question was, do I want side railings or don't I want side railings? Like, I like side railings. I think it helps to open the eye out more. So for instance, you could do something either with the finials, or you could do something in here. I mean, there's lots of room to be creative with it. Again, we had a finite amount of time to do this. So before the architect could do his part, I had to make the sculpture, get it cast, photograph it and whatnot. And so we tried to keep this simple and clean, but there's plenty of room to expand symbolism and meaning.
And sorry, just a quick question. Braille seems very high up on the statue itself. Would it be accessible to a non-seeing person?
Nope. It is possible to possibly do it in some other kind of way. Normally, I have this thing about my work being accessible. So usually, if you look at my portfolio, it's really there for visual effect. If I thought there was a way for me to incorporate it someplace else, and that's food for thought. Like for instance, I can incorporate it in the benches. I can add Braille to the benches, have the text in size, but then also have Braille. So still trying to figure out how to work that out, because I think it's important. Because again, early in my career, I had a mother come to me and thank me for adding Braille. She had a 4-year-old that was losing his sight and was learning Braille. She was just so happy that somebody thought to do that. So that's something to give more thought.
Sure, thank you. And just a question about the flame.
Yeah.
From a just parks management perspective,
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't vouch for its viability. Can you envision this without a flame or with an alternative to the flame?
Okay, so we researched all the alternatives. For instance, we talked about how when you go to like Bed Bath & Beyond, they have like the flameless. That doesn't work in the rain. It's like, so we looked at all kinds of things, and then ultimately I sculpted a flame in her hand, and I'm like, if I have to settle for that, I could settle for that. I'm not opposed to settling for that, but I really was hoping we could work out fire. I mean, I called your fire department, I called everybody. Like, what do I do about this? Because I really want that feature very badly. I was very, very concerned about safety. I realize this is the city of New York and a lot of things cannot happen here, but I was hoping that would be something I could figure out.
Yeah, I think our legal department would probably be.
Well, yeah, we thought about that too. And mind you, when I called the fire department, I had a couple of chats with the fire department because I had to find the fire department for this district, and then I had to talk to permits. So I did my homework. In the end, I was like, I'm just gonna ask and see what they do, and hopefully, if there is something that we have to do to compromise it one way or the other, I'm flexible. As I said at the top, if I can't have fire, then I will just have a gold, like natural bronze colored flame coming out of her hand.
I'm sorry to monopolize.
No,
this.
Go ahead. These are good questions.
One more question about the pedestal.
Yes.
Why this pedestal and not the existing pedestal?
I didn't want anything of J Marion Sim. I want to start with a clean slate. I came down here, I don't know, back in the spring, and I looked at it and I was like, that's ugly. That was my gut reaction. It's ugly. I don't like that. And so then I'm trying to think, can I repurpose it? Can I deconstruct it and reuse it? I mean, I'm being creative in my mind. And so I called Kendall and I said, hey, if first of all, can I remove that? And he said, sure. I said, is the wall inside of it? Or like, is it built around the wall, or is there a hole? When he said there was a hole, I said, good. Because I had measured, I'm like, that's a great place to put a fence. I like wrought iron. It's a great place to put a fence. And again, Bryce and his team came to New York, and they told me, well, how do you feel about the Vanderbilt Gate? I was like, the Vanderbilt Gate? Because I missed it. And so when they said it, I was like, yes, give me something like that, but feminine. Make it look like it's the sister gate, like it's a defunct gate. I want a flower garden behind there because I want it to look like it was maybe originally part of the Conservancy garden. You can't get in this way anymore, sorry. But you can still see the beauty inside there. So again, the goal was to make this look as if in some alternative reality, 100 years ago, this is what they put up to celebrate women. That was my whole psychology, to go traditional. I'm a New Yorker, I know Central Park. I know the feeling of the artwork, around Central Park, and I wanted it to look like it belongs, like it goes, like it was intended, like it's supposed to be here.
Thank you.
So we have time for 2 questions now.
Miss
Perfect. You get one.
Miss Bagwell, thank you for this concept of this beautiful victory.
Wait a minute, where are you? Oh, okay. Hi.
My question again comes back to the flame.
Yes.
New York State is trying to achieve fossil fuel zero at 2030, meaning we don't want to leave a carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to use fossil fuels. We want new energy production and be continuing to save the world and to serve and be self-sustaining. So my view, your flame is a great symbolization of creativity and enlightenment, but I differ in your concept of 365 days of flaming, adding your carbon footprint, adding to methane, CO2 footprint. If you have another substitute or an alternative to your concept there, I think that it would fly and it would be a great example of our New York symbolism of inclusivity.
Okay. Is there a question? I mean, what do you want me to say?
What are your alternatives?
I'll just explain that if I cannot do fire, it will be a sculpted flame. That's all I got, unless you have something better to suggest.
If your landscape architect has some self-
No, we've explored it. That's it. I'm telling you, you either do a live flame or it's going to be a sculpture of bronze and natural. That's it. Unless you have something that we haven't discovered, that's it. But I'm going to argue with you.
Exactly.
And I'm going to say, hey, look, I'm with you on that. I agree with you. However, there are lampposts down at Gracie Mansion, and I'm sure there are other fires around the world. And I think this is worth the sacrifice.
Yes.
If that's the only, this is the second flame we have in the city of New York at the Gracie Mansion. I'm sorry, I'm going to advocate for the sacrifice of the carving, whatever, because I'm sorry, these people gave their lives. African Americans continue to have to fight for equality, continue to have to be, well, deal with racism, and while I'm thinking what you're asking for is very, very valuable, I'm not disputing that, not one iota, but I think in this particular instance, one flame, and it's not a huge flame, we're talking about something that burns a foot high, it's not like I'm burning, I don't know, but the point of it is I'd ask the city of New York to make the sacrifice. That's what I would do. If it's possible, I'm saying please.
Amen.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm going to ask the unpopular question about the angel wings.
Yeah.
And thinking about the history of enslaved women and enslaved people and the way that Christianity and specific imaginings of a heaven or a salvation in death have really dark and specific context for many people. Also, not to mention, exclude a large amount of experience from people coming from different religions or different spiritual understandings. So I'd love to get your opinion on that. And I have also a question about the gate. It seems you talk about it as a continuation of the park, as a continuation of architecture. And visually, it's very embellished. It gives me almost like it's blocking this person. It seems like a cage, it seems like a way, it almost is keeping people out or keeping this person in. So I'd love if you could speak to those two formal elements, but mostly the wings and this idea of why isn't this person alive? Why isn't this person vibrant? What is this imagining of something better in death?
You don't sound like a fan. Okay, so here we are. Number one. 95% of the world believes in God. 95% of the world believes in God. That there is a God, a deity, somebody out there that's alive, that talks to us and helps us 24/7. 95% of the people in the world. most of those people believe there's an afterlife of some kind. Not just Christians, but most of the people who believe in God believe that there is an afterlife. I chose an angel because, again, if you research what victories do, mind you, there's archangels, there's guardian angels, there's cherubs, there's virtues. I picked the victory because victories represent, again, this is creative interpretation. Victories represent the spirits who come to the physical plane to right the souls before they go back to the light. That's all. It's no deeper than that. I could have done a variety of things. Again, I am a representational, figurative sculptor. I do people. Before I added the wings, mind you, the wings were not an afterthought, but before I added the wings, because we had to add the wings after we cast it, so for a long time I was looking at this sculpture as just a woman, and I thought to myself, I could do it just like that. But again, this is an idea. It's not an individual. It's an idea. And so the goal is to create a universal symbol of the idea that we should, in the name of humanity, do no harm.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
It's a very simple concept. There's a lot of things I could have done. If I had more time, I could have given it more thought. I could have gone a variety of different ways, but this is the way that I chose, and I think this is the right way.
That's right.
One more question now.
I'm concerned about, number one, thank you very much for your presentation. You're local, and that's a great thing. I'm concerned about the gate. For me, the scroll work and whatever is very Eurocentric. And have you given any thought to the ironwork like you see represented in Savannah and Charleston that was generated by slaves, that is more Afrocentric in its design, and maybe, and you know, like just representing the gate that represents this family who also did us so much damage, I would think would be more representative if it looked like the gates we see represented in Charleston and Savannah.
Well, you know what? Ironically, I was in Savannah and Charleston last month. This is October, last month. And so I have an idea of what you might be referring to. I'm not opposed to that. We were not given any instructions. We just kind of let loose with our imaginations. So this is kind of how I approached it. As I said, being a New Yorker and having competed for Central Park before, I'm not saying that today's community is the same community that I competed with 15 years ago, but I know how folks feel about Central Park. And so again, my gut reaction was trying to make something that looked like it was related. I'm not opposed to changing the idea. I'm perfectly wide open, but here's the thing, somebody got to give me some prescriptions. It's like, okay, if they say we'd like something more Afrocentric, it's like, okay, there's plenty of room to embellish. There's even room to change. I'm not opposed to that, but again, if it's coming out of your imagination, then I'm going to need some instructions in terms of what the criteria is to make it be okay. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I think there's plenty more that we can do. We can have real fun with it in terms of using, I'll just say Adinkra symbols as an example, but that's not the only thing there is. I would spend a little bit more time going even deeper than that, because I don't think those are the only symbols there are. So the question is, do I only want to dwell on Adinkra because that's what we're most familiar with? I don't know. I'd have to spend some time really doing my homework, because that's what I do. I have to research to figure out what makes sense. See, because for me, when I create a public artwork, and it's different when I'm creating stuff for myself, it really is. When I'm creating public art for a public place, it's important to me that people get it. That people see something that they can relate to, something that helps them understand the purpose of this piece. So I think what you're saying has some value, and I'm certainly open to adding more to it. If you want me to change it, I'd have to know what don't you like, what do you want me to change, and then we can kind of go from there. I would need some kind of frame of reference, because I love this. I absolutely love this myself. And again, any changes that I would make, I would need to love that too. So as I said, that would be a conversation. I'm open to dialogue. You know, if they decide next week that, yeah, you win, I'm gonna wanna have a conversation with the community before I do this. I always talk to the community before I make a public artwork, because it matters to me that you care about it, that you love it, that you are gonna respect it. So thank you for that suggestion. As I said, if it should come to that, certainly make sure you're there so you can give me some side of suggestion what can happen, and then we'll come up with something that maybe is a little bit more balanced from your perspective.
And the very last question.
I really appreciate this piece of art.
Thank you.
And I'm looking at it from a Puerto Rican, indigenous point of view, not only African. So when I look at the back, when I look at the ironwork in the back,
Yes.
I see a lot of water symbols, and in the sparrows and infinity symbols, and I see some Arahuacaino symbols in them. And I'm here with Taller Boricua, and we will be willing to look at that with you. And also, you know, Puerto Rican women, as indigenous women all over the world, have been sterilized.
Oh, please.
And this,
Thank you.
And this
Yes.
is by the same mindset. And this is going to be an espacio.
Yes.
So we offer
Yes.
that we put, there's the Atabe and indigenous Boricua symbols that I think could fit. And Marcos and I are willing to either sit with you or talk with you, because your work is amazing.
Thank you. You know what? I want to thank you for bringing that up. Last year, I was invited to speak at Yale University at an environmental justice convention. And my gut reaction was that I was just going to go and do my thing and leave. And then the day before, I thought to myself, you should go and spend the whole day. Because I didn't really understand why they had me speaking at an environmental justice conference. And so I went to the whole thing, and several hours before it was time for me to talk, a woman spoke and talked about how in the middle of the 20th century, the United States government sterilized 40,000 Puerto Rican women. That stunned me. Most of the Puerto Rican people that I know, no matter what color their skin is, most of the Puerto Rican people that I know consider themselves to be people of color. And so on there, if you look at the sculpture, and certainly I'll walk around with it if you like, there are some women with the big fat braids. These are the Hispanic women. Somehow, people of color became a target for medical experimentation, I mean, just on so many different fronts. So again, as an African American, as a woman of color, every time I get a chance to speak for us, I like to tell the whole story. The story is epic. In this sculpture, you can't really see it in the photograph, but on her chest, over her heart, I cut out the shape of Africa. So one breast is bare because they removed 12 million people from a continent over the course of 400 years. That's part one. Part two is that they brought us over here on boats, and we're talking about a trip that took 3 to 4 months to make, which blows my mind. So you've got a slave ship on there, and of course, as you come into the middle ground, that's when you begin to see women. Of course, in the foreground, you've got, again, the relationship of women. This piece doesn't only represent the 12, it represents all women of color that have been abused on so many different levels in so many different ways. Thank you.
So please give a round of applause for Vinnie and